Today, let's dive into one of Java's most powerful and, sometimes misunderstood keywords, final. I promise, by the end of this, you're not going to see it as a limitation. You'll see it as this amazing tool for writing code that's safer, more predictable, and frankly, just more professional. Oh, we've all been there, right? You're spending hours, maybe even days, hunting down some bizarre bug. And what do you find? Some critical value, an important ID, was accidentally changed somewhere deep, deep in the code. It is so frustrating, and it's a completely avoidable problem. So, what if you could make a promise directly to the Java compiler? Like an unbreakable vow that says this piece of code right here will not change, ever? Well, that's exactly what the final keyword is for. It's your way of saying this part's done. Lock it down. Okay, so let's start with the most common way you'll see final used every single day, applying it to variables to create what we call constants. The real problem that final variables solve is chaos. It's that simple. When a value that is supposed to be fixed gets accidentally changed, your whole program state becomes unpredictable, and that leads to those nightmare bugs that are just so hard to find. And just look at the difference here. On the left, you might have a variable, int max users is equal to 100. Then, way later in the code, someone accidentally changes it. Boom, a bug is born, just waiting to cause havoc. But now look at the right. If we declare it as final, int max users is equal to 100, the second anyone tries to change it, the compiler just stops them dead in their tracks. It throws an error. The bug is caught before you can even run the program. Now that is powerful. And honestly, this is the perfect way to think about it. It's not just some variable anymore. It's a constant. Once you give it a value, either right when you declare it or in the constructor, that's it. It is set in stone. And the compiler becomes your personal guard, making sure that rule is never, ever broken. So where do you use this in the real world? Well, think about the obvious stuff, like mathematical constants, pi, for example, or really important configuration settings, like the max number of login attempts, maybe the base URL for an API that your application talks to. Basically, any value that defines a fundamental rule for your app is a perfect candidate for final. All right, so we've locked down our variables. Now let's take this whole concept of control up to the next level, final methods. Look, inheritance is one of the coolest things about Java, but it's got a risky side. A subclass can just override a parent's method, and if that method handles something critical, like a security check or some core business logic, that override could totally compromise your entire system. Let's see this in action. On the left, imagine we have a calculator class with an add method. Then a secure calculator comes along and overrides add, but maybe it forgets a really important validation step. That's a huge security risk. But on the right, if that original add method is declared as final, any attempt by any subclass to overwrite it just fails. You get a compile time error. The original logic is safe, guaranteed. So here's the key takeaway. Making a method final is like protecting the core DNA of your class. You are putting up a sign that says, this specific behavior is absolutely fundamental, and it must not be changed by any class that inherits from me. It ensures stability all the way down the line. Okay, time for the ultimate lockdown, sealing an entire class blueprint with the final keyword. Sometimes you design a class and it's perfect. It's a complete self-contained unit. You really don't want anyone to extend it, either because it would mess up how it works internally, or, even more importantly, it could open up a security hole. And the way to do this is just beautifully simple. On the left, a normal class, public class user, can be extended by anybody. But on the right, just by adding that one little word, public final class user, we've sealed it shut. The compiler will now stop any other class from inheriting from user. It is a dead end, and that's on purpose. And if you've ever wondered, hey, why can't I just extend the string class in Java? Well, this is it. This is the exact reason. The people who built Java made it final on purpose to guarantee that it's always immutable and that its behavior is always predictable. The stability of the entire platform kind of relies on the fact that a string is always and forever a string. Okay, so we've covered the what and the how. Let's just zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. Why does this idea of making things final actually matter for writing good code? Here's your perfect little cheat sheet. Let's just run through it. For a variable, final creates a constant. For a method, final prevents anyone from overriding it. And for a class, it prevents inheritance. See? 3 different situations, one simple, powerful promise. This thing is unchangeable.
And the benefits here are just huge. Your code becomes way more predictable because this idea of immutability, of things not changing, is a huge part of writing safer, more modern code. It's more secure because you're actively stopping malicious or just accidental changes to your core logic. And maybe most importantly for your team, it's way more maintainable because that final keyword is like a bright flashing sign telling other developers exactly what you intended.
So there you have it. You now have this incredibly powerful tool for showing your intent and building really robust, safe systems. But you have to remember, every design choice is a trade-off. Using Final absolutely everywhere can make your code too rigid, too inflexible. And that leaves us with the really interesting next question. Now that you know how to lock your code down, when is it actually better to leave the door open?